What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we had one of the weirdest leaks of 2025 happen in a post where the person showed up, immediately identified themselves, and then started to just leak out information around a game that's currently under embargo. It's just a very wild situation, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo with the Switch 2 and those game key cards, as an ex-developer at Capcom actually decided to speak out about it and even defend them somewhat. And then we'll also be talking about Borderlands 4 and Randy Pitchford because, well, he has a hard time staying away from social media, and he wasn't too happy to hear all the people on Steam talk about how poorly optimized the game is. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with The Crew. This is a game from Ubisoft that was at the center of attention when it came to the Stop Killing Games initiative. This was the game that really seemed to kick things off for that. And now it appears it's kind of made a return. Of course, though, thanks to the community, as we can see this posted up. This is over on the website, The Crew Unlimited. And I had heard that this was happening. I didn't keep tabs on it too much until yesterday when TCU, or The Crew Unlimited 1.0, released. Now, the idea here is they are emulating, I believe, the server for The Crew, and you would use this on PC. So if you have The Crew on PC and you're able to download it, or you still have it installed, it seems like you'd be able to use this to then get back online with it and play. I guess normally, I'm curious to see what they have, because sometimes you'll see these private servers and they'll change up some, set it like they'll modify experience gain or even different things that are available. So I'm curious to see what they would have for this. But I mean, The Crew itself, I didn't get as into The Crew as obviously some people did, because we see an entire server being emulated and used here so people can play it again. But at least good news, people who are really, really into it can, I guess, get back online on PC, as long as they're able to access the files, which even that was a whole thing, as we saw Ubisoft like taking away authentication or verification of the game from people's libraries, and they weren't able to download it. So hey, let me know if you've tried out this server and what you think about it so far with The Crew. Also, we had some more information around Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, that coming to the Switch 2 October 2nd. So we're only a few weeks away from this very quick release from announcement. And because of that, there's still some details that are floating around that haven't necessarily been confirmed until now, when we have things like the Japanese eShop page go up and mention mouse support. Now, this we can see is over on Vooks that pointed this out, with not only mouse support, but also we do have 4K, and that is something that people are still asking about. Or is this going to be on the Switch 2, because it is a Switch 1 cartridge or Switch 1 release? Is it going to have 4K support? It will. We're still checking to see maybe what changes they'd have for, say, assets, as it looked like there were some differences between Mario Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars collection and then Mario Galaxy in this new upcoming release with even the double pack. GVG did a video comparing them, and yeah, there are some differences, but we have to see a bit more here when it comes to some of the features, probably once we get up to release and people have a chance to check it out. But for now, it does at least seem to be taking advantage of the mouse support on the Switch 2, and I figure that's mostly going to be used to shoot the star bits all over the screen. That does seem like it would be able to mimic the pointer controls of the Wiimote pretty well. Oh, and I know Persona fans right now are on edge, hoping for that big Persona announcement. I mean, we got some events coming up, but it seems that Atlas decided to just go ahead and put it out there early. You can see this over on their account. That's right. Your calling card has arrived, hero. Join the Phantom Thieves on the battlefield when you hop into Overwatch 2 coming tomorrow. Man, they are just trolling people at this point. There you go. If you too were a fan of Persona 5 on the PlayStation 3, it's now coming to Overwatch 2 and across. But look, I know that they've definitely been the stretching thin, we'll say, the Persona 5 franchise at this point. It's been very successful for them. And I do think we are getting very close to Persona 6, so don't worry there. I thought this was funny because everyone's waiting for that big Persona 6 announcement, and here they show up with a Persona 5 and Overwatch 2 crossover, the thing everyone's been hoping to see. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with one of the weirdest leaks that we've seen so far in 2025. And you know, at first I saw this and I was like, ooh, that's not good. But then I started reading through it. It's kind of funny, but also kind of a shame, because it does appear that the person who just put this up online, was genuinely excited and didn't really understand what exactly they signed off on, but let's go over that. This is for Silent Hill F. That's out in 10 days, by the way. Man, the games just keep coming. In some cases, they're sneaking up on us now. Silent Hill F, I think, has looked awesome, and I'm very excited for it. And, well, we're going to see reviews probably go up, I assume maybe by the end of this week, or at least probably to start out next week. But we don't have to wait too long to at least see the first one, because you can see this. This was dropped on the Silent Hill subreddit, and the person's name was that I figured we'd cut it off here because the person's probably already in enough trouble as it is. But they say some notes on Silent Hill F with no spoilers. The very first sentence: I write for DualShockers, and I'm doing a review of Silent Hill F. Because of it, I was able to get the game early, and I beat it over the weekend. I'm rating it a 9.5 out of 10. It's genuinely spectacular. So, on one hand, Konami probably isn't happy because they've broken embargo, but then, on the other, this is a really good early review, or as they say, some notes on the game that quickly made the rounds, and I saw people go, whoa, maybe Silent Hill F is going to be really good. This person thinks it's a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe a bunch of other reviewers, maybe this is going to be a 92 or something on Metacritic. These are all conversations that were going on because of this one review. Maybe a controlled leak by Konami in partnership with DualShockers. Okay, probably not. But they do talk quite a bit about the combat here. They mention the content warnings actually being meaningful, as in it's going to hit pretty hard. There's a new game plus that's pretty cool, continuing the story. They mentioned to read everything, and it's very unique to any other Silent Hill game. And that's kind of what I was getting at too when I saw it. As this doesn't, I mean, in some ways, doesn't really feel like a Silent Hill game. Anyway, this went viral online, as I mentioned, and the person seemed to reply to others who were bringing up the embargo, and they say, the embargo just gives me a deadline and prevents me from talking spoilers. Everything I'm talking about are things that will be in the review. And they say, I appreciate, thank you. I reread my email a million times just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Enjoy the game. So, if you're unaware, very quickly, an embargo basically just tells you when you can put up information around a game that you're reviewing, which means you have to be very, very quiet or silent about the game. Sometimes you can post an image of you downloading the game, for example, on the front of your, like the PlayStation 5 dashboard on the Xbox or on the Switch 2. They'll say, hey, you can alert your audience that you are going to review this game, and you can post an image of the title screen or of the icon. Like, that's kind of it, and then it's don't say anything. Unless there's a preview period, then they'll tell you stuff you can say there, and then you save the rest for the review. This person seems to think that's a deadline that was given to them by DualShockers, when really it's a date for when you can post the information here. Now, I will say this. The person does not seem familiar with embargoes, so this would then fall on the people at DualShockers who would then outsource this to this person to review. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. DualShockers should have been very clear as to what an embargo means before handing off the review code. But hey, I guess Silent Hill F, at least from the first review, is very, very good. So I'm excited to pick that game up next week on the 25th and see exactly what those content warnings were about, check out some of the combat, and I think the visuals in general, especially on like a nice OLED display, is going to look really, really cool. So I'm excited, and in a way, yeah, this leaked review just took the hype meter up a little bit for me. Next up, let's talk about those Switch 2 game keycards that have been a very contentious topic since they were revealed alongside of the Switch 2. And here we do have a developer who worked at Capcom as composer, talking a bit more about Nintendo and these game keycards. And I said a little bit more about the business practices of Nintendo, but I wanted to focus in on the game keycard aspect because you do the rest, it just turned into a whole video. However, the game keycards themselves were brought up in a few different ways. This we can see over on Masakazu Sugimori's account here on social media, saying regarding the claim often heard overseas that seems to have some legitimacy, it's unfair that something you bought becomes unplayable when the service ends. As a player myself, I can understand this perspective, and I sometimes feel the same way, but well, do physical items outside of digital products last forever? Most of the time they don't, right? Physical things always have a lifespan and will eventually break. Digital products, on the other hand, generally don't have a lifespan. They then go on to talk about the key card, saying measures against illegal copying, reducing the risk of holding inventory. So Reducing the risk of holding inventory. Sure. Okay. It depends. Now, if you are buying the full cartridge and you have a minimum order amount, you are absolutely taking a risk when it comes to how much inventory you're putting out there, because if it sits on store shelves or it gets marked down, it's not going to go over well for your bottom line. Now, the part about piracy, that's also correct in the sense that if you got a game key card early, I don't think we've had this tested yet, but if you got that early, I would assume if you pop it in a system a week ahead of time, it's probably not going to download the files. I say probably, again, we haven't necessarily have it tested. I'm sure we will. The way that these games break street data all the time, it'll happen at some point, sure. But at least for now, the idea of having a launcher on even a PlayStation 5 disc, if you can't access the server at the time for, we'll say with Call of Duty or Indiana Jones, something like that, and it can't download the files, the game can't leak early. So those are all things I definitely understand. The aspect I'm a little lost on here is the idea of the digital side versus the physical in terms of longevity. And I say that because if you look at the game key card, it's still a physical chip inside. Like, that chip can fail after, I don't know, so many decades. We're still kind of guessing, by the way, on the longevity of discs. Like, we've heard about disc rot, which seems more of a case-by-case basis because it is dependent on things like even climate and manufacturing, especially when it comes to companies and the pressing methods and materials. So, for example, Sony gives you a range of a DVD or a Blu-ray of 30 to 100 years, something like that. Some are thinking that a Blu-ray can last up to 80 years. All right. So that's sort of where we are with that. And if you think about NES cartridges, we're still trying to figure out when those are going to go defective and just start completely being destroyed on their own. And I mean, those were out in the 80s. So if you have DVDs now that you bought when the DVD player first showed up, maybe you're someone who's buying them in the early 2000s, even with the PS2, and they're still working, you're probably looking around like, okay, well, I might be buying stuff currently that, it's more of a sound, right? Might outlive me. So do I really care necessarily if it breaks in 120 years? You probably won't. So the way I look at it with digital products, as long as they can be replicated over and over again and stored away from an authentication server, sure, that should last longer than a physical product. The problem we're running into now is there are games, okay, that require always online connections, and we have games that require authentication in general. As in, you have to handshake with maybe a server that publisher has set up for you to even use the game and download it. All right, and that's kind of the problem. We see some of these games get pulled down and taken away, and if you haven't purchased it by then digitally, you can't get it anymore. Think about different car games and stuff like that with licensing attached. It just gets delisted and it's gone. So I don't really buy into the idea of the game keycard itself being something that is good because the game can last longer as a digital product, since the chip itself and the game keycard can also be prone to failure. Otherwise, though, I get the whole anti-piracy thing, and I get the being like the inventory on hand being more expensive if it is a full cartridge versus a game keycard chip. Still, it doesn't really matter. Either of those don't really matter to consumers. For the most part, people who are buying physical for collections, they want the game on the cartridge. Next up, let's talk about Borderlands 4 and Randy Pitchford, who was quite active on social media. If you're unaware, Borderlands 4 has been going through it right now, specifically on the PC side. I've been playing it on the PlayStation 5 Pro. There are frame drops, especially when a lot of stuff happens, or if you go into split screen mode, that just seems to cut the frame rate in half because I guess you have two different screens there, mostly with people running around in the same world. But the PC side is very frustrated right now because you may have a card that is quite expensive, but struggling to play Borderlands 4. It's a good looking game, I think, but it doesn't have that visual punch that maybe some bigger budget games even have, right? Ones that really blow you away with visuals, but Borderlands 4 seems to have performance issues that maybe would come along with incredible looking visuals and vistas. So with all of this going on, Randy Pitchford decided to take to social media, and he had a string of tweets. For example, this one, he was replying to a person asking about optimization and making the game look good without relying on upscaling. He said, "Code your own engine and show us how it's done, please. We will be your customer when you pull it off. The people doing it now are clearly dumb and don't know what they're doing, and all the support and recommendations and code and architecture from the world's greatest hardware." He just goes on to be very sarcastic and snarky here in his reply. He then goes into a very, very long series of tweets in this thread that did get community noted immediately where he started off saying every PC gamer must accept the reality of the relationship between their hardware and what the software they are running is doing. He has a few other highlights, like we have made an amazing and fun and huge looter shooter campaign game. The game is pretty optimal, which means that the software is doing what we want without wasteful cycles on bad processes. For a campaign shooter looter, it is absolutely reasonable for developers to focus on default settings achieving 30 FPS on minimum specification and 60 FPS on recommended specification. Never say 30 FPS to a PC gamer. I'm telling you, Randy, it's just a bad idea. He says it is a mistake to believe or expect that PCs between minimum specifications and recommended specification can achieve all of extremely high frame rate, maximum ultra features, and extremely high resolution. He also recommends saying use DLSS. It's great. The game was built to take advantage of it. This is not a competitive FPS, and I have been led to believe that in a blind test that humans cannot detect any input lag. In my own demonstrations and experiments, I believe this is true. Oh, and here's a good one. The minimum and recommended specs are published. The most common hardware is a 4-year-old cell phone. Borderlands 4 is a premium game made for premium gamers. You know, I've said this before, right? Sometimes you just don't have to say anything on social media. It's quite easy. That's it. You just don't do anything. So I'm not really sure why. And by the way, there are many more messages than this. So he just goes off for a while. And it is strange because it's very easy for, I think, to just tweet, we're looking into some of these performance issues and we'll let you guys know in the future as we work to update and just improve the game through future patches. Just let people know the problem exists. We recognize it. We're working on it. Because as much as he seems to want to be like, oh, use DLSS, do all this other stuff, change settings, people are having issues. It's very clear. It's mixed on Steam. We have tests now, Hardware Unboxed tested 40 GPUs and even showed that the 5090, like a $2,000 card, is struggling. Like, okay, I say struggle. When I say like 90 frames per second for a card that usually blows away most games without upscaling there, you feel like there's a problem because most people aren't running that. They are running mid-range cards. So that's kind of the issue here when it comes to Borderlands 4. Most people seem to be having a problem, but then you have Randy Pitchford out there saying there's no problem, change your settings, it's a premium game for premium gamers. Not the greatest look. I'm telling you, Randy, sometimes it's just easy not to say anything about it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when will Persona 6 get released? Oh, wow. I thought 2026 would have gotten more votes. That is 9%. Okay, 2027 is 39%. Then the next highest one is 2029 at 30%. And then 2028, 23%. I was kind of thinking it's next year, but now maybe I'm missing something here, and it is 2027. Wow, okay. Well, it feels like it's been a while, right? With Persona 5 as a PS3 game. I feel like we're close to them making the announcement for Persona 6. Tokyo Game Show should make sense, or a state of play that we believe is coming up. But at this point, who knows? Because Persona 6 has been built up to this pedestal, almost, this level of where Atlas and Sega can announce it whenever they want. They could have an entire event just for Persona 6, and a ton of people would tune in. So I'd like to think that they have it lined up for reveal before the end of this year. Because if we're really waiting till 2027 or 2028 for this game to come out, that's going to raise expectations higher than maybe they can even reach even with something like a Persona 6. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Persona user Mike. There you go. All that's left for Mega Man collections is Legends. I keep seeing people bring this up, and Capcom's kind of been sidestepping around it a bit the last couple of collections. It makes sense to go for it now. I've been trying to figure out how they can make the collection valuable enough to where they can get to that $60 price range. I just feel like that's what Capcom would like to get to. And I'm like, okay, they have Legends 1. Maybe they could do Mega Man 64. Just throw that up there as, hey, look, it's the Nintendo 64. There's some differences. It's a whole other release. They could do that. Of course, you have Misadventures of Tronbon. You have Mega Man Legends 2. And I think there was also this Rockman Dash game, if I'm not mistaken, that you could throw in. I'm wondering is that enough? The Mega Man Legends games already do have a fair amount of content to them. So I'd say they're medium, the larger games, you could make that argument, sure. I'm just trying to figure out if that would be enough. And then a bunch of museum stuff, maybe some fun extras in there. For the Mega Man fans out there, it probably would be enough to get them to $60. But I don't know if Capcom wants to take that swing unless they have Mega Man Legends 3 out there somewhere, and this would be a way to get people on board for what would be an absolutely ridiculous and crazy reveal for them to revive that one. But first, we got to get the Legends collection out there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you wanted to see how the PlayStation Vita storefront is doing online in 2025. I did a video checking all of that out, and I'll leave right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.